You're with the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you very much for staying with us. The power of education and the ability of young people to reshape the world were among the broader themes of an historic commencement speech that was delivered by abolitionist Frederick Douglass in Hudson in 1854 at what was then known as Western Reserve College. The speech, titled The Claims of the Negro Ethnologically Considered, sharply debunked so called scientific racism, the belief that different racial and ethnic groups have innately differing levels of physical, intellectual, and moral development that distinguish them as superior or inferior. It received renewed attention last year when an award winning documentary called Just and Perfect involved current students reciting portions of the speech. Here's a small clip.
In truth, this question is at the bottom of the whole controversy now going on between the slaveholders on the one hand and the abolitionists on the other. It is the same old question which has divided the selfish from the philanthropic part of mankind in all ages. It is the question whether the rights, privileges, and immunities enjoyed by some ought not to be shared and enjoyed by all.
On Friday, the great-great-great-grandson of Douglass, Kenneth Morris Jr., is scheduled to visit the campus of what is now Western Reserve Academy, still in Hudson, to talk with present-day students in the place where Douglass delivered his speech. Now, we had initially planned to have Kenneth Morris on the show today, but he had to cancel due to illness. We do hope that he's feeling well and is up to that speech that will be happening there on Friday, that conversation. And we are very thankful that Cece Payne, the writer and producer of the film Just and Perfect, and Ayanna Graham Stefanum, the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for Western Reserve Academy, have stepped in to talk about Douglass's historic speech, the film, and how the speech still connects to students today. So we'd like to welcome them to the show. Cece, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephanie. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. And Ayanna, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Of course, pleasure is mine.
Now, if you would like to join the conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903, and you can email us at soi@ideastream.org or send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Cece, the speech by Douglass in Hudson has received new interest because of the film. What drew you to that as a film subject?
Yeah, so Western Reserve Academy is gearing up to, or not even gearing up, at this moment we are in the midst of celebrating our 200th anniversary as a school. It is our bicentennial year. And so as we were preparing for this year, the community pulled some heads together and had a conversation and just said, what are the moments in our 200 years of history that we feel so particularly proud of? And there was a resounding attention to this moment where Frederick Douglass came to our campus in 1854. And as a community, we felt that we would be remiss to not take a moment to pause and revisit that speech as a community and use the anniversary as a moment to bring the speech into a bit more of a spotlight. As you mentioned, Stephanie, there are themes in the speech that are still relevant today. And so it was a great opportunity for us to take another opportunity, just as the students had done in 1854, to platform Douglass and his ideas to a broader audience. And it ended up being an incredible project. It was great to be able to work with students on it who themselves were really excited about the topic and the opportunity to bring it to a new audience. So that's kind of the story of how that all came to be.
And Cece, how did you first become aware of the speech that happened at that spot in Hudson in 1854? Was that through your work with the Western Reserve Academy?
Yes, it was actually. So I joined the Western Reserve Academy community about 4 years ago as an English teacher. And walking through the campus, I forget who exactly it was, but they were telling me a little bit about the story of Frederick Douglass coming to campus in 1854. And as an African American Studies major, and an American Studies major, I was so wowed by that for so many reasons. I thought to have been here in 1854, considering what was going on in the nation at that time, was just so profound. And it was a story that I had always been so fond of. It had made me have so much reverence for the community, and just thinking about what kind of place this must have been to have been willing to make a decision like that back then.
And bringing it into present day, CC, having the students read the excerpts from the speech. We just saw that short clip there, which was very powerful. How did you decide on that as a way to bring the speech to life here in the current day? And I'm wondering if the students helped select the excerpts.
Oh, that's a great question. So that came about just from me sitting a bit with the original story itself. One of the most interesting wrinkles of this story to me was the fact that Douglas's presence happened because students themselves had asked for him to be on campus. Back in 1854, when Western Reserve Academy was Western Reserve College, we had these literary societies who were really committed to promoting open dialogue on campus. And so the students themselves had been the ones to reach out to Douglas and invite him to campus. And so it felt as though now in the year 2025, when we were working on this, it made sense to have students be the ones bringing these words to life again. And so the students didn't help me with selecting the excerpts. To that, I actually have to give a ton of credit to Michael Johnson, who is a member of our board of trustees here at Western Reserve Academy. He's a proud alum of Western Reserve Academy himself, and something that he's always been really proud of was the Douglas story. And so he was an immense help in going through the speech, which is 2 hours long originally, to identify some excerpts that we thought were particularly meaningful for people.
Now, Ayana, the film, of course, gives the speech new life with having the students recite those experts. And also having Douglas's great 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 grandson, Kenneth Morris, on campus later this week can further bring those words into the present day. Ayana, what is it that you're hoping students take from that event on Friday?
Another great question. I think just zooming out and thinking from a bird's eye view, when I do this work and I collaborate with a number of people on campus for this, when we bring speakers to campus, I'm hoping that our speakers reach our students. I think today we're just seeing a time where we're consuming so much all the time so quickly, and our phones are competing for our attention all the time. And so bringing a speaker in, I'm always hoping that they will connect with the students and really teach them the relevance of history and just the importance of being engaged citizens of the world. And so the film does a really great job of making that story feel relevant and has brought new life to the campus and its history. And so I'm hoping just with bringing Kenneth B. Morris to campus that that adds an additional layer to it and allows students to understand that we are all a part of history and it's living and breathing. And there are people who are still alive today and related to those who have done these great, powerful things. And I'm hoping, honestly, that it will inspire them to think about the voices that they have and their power to be change makers today. So that's really my hope.
Ayana, do you have any idea what you expect Kenneth Morris to say, what the substance of his conversation will be with the students?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit. We did a Zoom call, and there was a few of us on it beforehand just to talk through some ideas. We always want to make sure that our speakers have an understanding of the context of our school and our students. And what's very interesting about Kenneth, and he is a descendant of both Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington, which was something that we just randomly found out through our research, which is super cool. But he actually spoke a lot about wanting to also highlight the contributions of the women in his family who, he says that, Frederick Douglass would not be who Frederick Douglass is today without the support of his wife. And just there are a number of women that he spoke about wanting to also highlight the stories of. And so he's going to be delivering a presentation that really talks about, I think he quoted part of the title, The Power of One. And so I'm imagining that with his remarks that he will, touch base a little bit on that and really give a holistic picture of Douglass and those who supported the work that he did.
Now, Cece, that 1854 speech by Frederick Douglass in Hudson, it was incredibly groundbreaking for his era. Can you tell us a little bit about what made it so special in that moment?
Yes, I can. So, in that era, what particularly stands out to me is that the nation was, um, I don't, yeah, I would say, kind of building towards the Civil War. 1854, in the month of May, actually, so 2 months before Frederick Douglass
Sounds good.
had arrived in Hudson, the Kansas Nebraska Act had been signed, and that actually was going to pave the way for the legalization of the expansion of slavery westward. And so, 2 months after that act is signed into law, Frederick Douglass comes to campus and he really wants to address the fact that while, the nation is at this moment where access to education and information is more than it might have been prior, he's trying to make it clear to the students that they, as educated citizens, have a responsibility with that education to make sure that they're not using it to justify the harm that's being done to a group of people in the United States. And so that was one of the moments that we really just wanted to lay clear for people, was understanding the stakes that Douglas was confronting with the Kansas-Nebraska Act becoming a new part of the way that the nation was running.
Cece, the film has been collecting awards last year at the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival, and it's been included in the 2026 Black History Film Festival. So, can you talk about that and what that means for this film and the students involved?
Oh, absolutely. Getting selected for the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival was an immense honor. Our students were really excited about it, especially because it is a local festival. I was able to take two of them with me for the premiere, and that was definitely a highlight of the two of their senior years for sure. When we set out to make this film, as much as it was a moment to commemorate and celebrate a milestone in our school's history, more than that, it was a moment to make sure that there is a new national audience for the content of the speech itself. And so it's been incredibly rewarding to see it be picked up on the film festival circuit and be getting these amazing opportunities to share the message with broader audiences. Like you mentioned, we just found out about being selected for the Black History Film Festival this year, which we're really excited about, particularly because it's a multi-city festival. So we'll get to screen the film in Miami, in Oakland, California, in Washington, D.C., and in Atlanta in February, which is really exciting for us now, looking about getting this film even broader than Ohio and getting it in front of some new eyes.
Hmm. I want to let people know, for those just joining us, that we are having a conversation about an historic speech that was delivered by Frederick Douglass in Hudson in 1854. We're talking with filmmaker Cece Payne about the film Just and Perfect, which has students from the area reciting excerpts from that speech. We also have Ayana Graham Sifanum with us from the Western Reserve Academy, and we are talking about an event that's happening on Friday with a direct descendant of Frederick Douglass. Kenneth Morris will be here speaking in honor of that speech having taken place in 1854 here in Hudson. If you want to be a part of the conversation, the number is 866-578-0903, and the email is soi@ideastream.org. Ayana, has the film reinvigorated interest in the work of Frederick Douglass beyond the 1854 speech in Hudson from what you're seeing?
I definitely think so. It has just been great for our community. Like I mentioned before, just it's one thing to read about it. It's another thing to get to relive it and experience it through the words of our students. And they performed the speech so passionately. And as Cece mentioned, two of those students are current seniors and the other two graduated last year. But the two seniors who were part of the film, they have just brought a lot of just life and passion into the school this year and are just excited to just be more engaged with the history and with this work and engage their peers. And I think the same would also be the same for our faculty as well. And so we're a pretty tight-knit community. We're a pretty small school. And I think the power of the film has definitely reverberated throughout it.
We'd like to play another clip from Just and Perfect at the end with a montage of students. So let's see that clip now.
Born as I was, in obscurity, a stranger to the halls of learning, environed by ignorance, degradation, and their concomitants, from birth to manhood.
I do not feel at liberty to mark out with any degree of confidence or dogmatism what is the precise vocation of the scholar. Yet this I can say,
As a denizen of the world, and as a citizen of a country rolling in the sin and shame of slavery, the most flagrant and scandalous that ever saw the sun.
whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest,
Whatsoever things are just,
Whatsoever things are pure,
whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good rapport, and if there be any virtue,
and if there be any praise.
think on these things.
think on these things.
Think on these things.
Think on these things.
Again, that was a clip from the documentary Just and Perfect, a section of the speech extolling the power of education and calling on scholars to reject divisive so-called scientific theories. That was from the speech of Frederick Douglass delivered in Hudson in 1854. And I want to thank our guests for being with us today. We had Cece Payne with us here on the phone, film creator. Cece, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely, Stephanie. Thanks so much for having me.
And also Ayanna Graham Stefanum, Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Belonging at the Western Reserve Academy. Ayanna, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was such a pleasure.